to the live Q&A for the ISTP personality type. And so, Vchuefeu, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, I'm Vchuefeu here, and yeah, I'm an ISTP that Joyce found.
Yeah. And so, Vchuefeu, would you like to tell us a little bit about how you experience introverted thinking?
Sure. Oh boy, then I blank, right? I guess introverted thinking. I guess introverted thinking is my sorting function. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's like I guess the one word would be like a filtering kind of a function where I just filter all, I guess, thoughts, feelings, everything. Everything just gets filtered through that. And yeah, that's about it. Like, I don't want to try to tie anything to that, like judgments or stuff, but I just want to say like one word is filtering.
Yeah. And how does that filtration process look like? What do you
Um,
filter?
uh, I want to say everything, right? But that feels like that ties into the next function. Maybe, maybe not, right? The SCNI, right?
Great. Yeah. Let's go to extroverted sensing then.
Okay, so I guess right. So what extroverted sensing? I guess that just takes in all the stuff from the environment. Not even stuff like that, but like just everything as is. So it's not like scanning for like details and stuff. It's just what is like the stuff as is in like the present moment.
Mm, well put. So it's seeing things as they are. And then how do you experience introverted intuition?
So and I to me it feels like trying to find like a through line in everything, right? Find like these bigger themes or kind of like these big picture things that tie all this stuff together.
Got it. And how do you experience extroverted feeling?
Extroverted feeling feels like the people function, which is a gross oversimplification, but right, just the most incorrect word would be just the peopling function, right? It's how I people and how I as an ISTP probably suck at it.
Ooh, can you go into the experience of Fe in the last slot? How does it manifest in a way where it's more on the negative side? Because typically inferior functions they manifest more on the dark side rather than the light side for most people. So I'm wondering if you want to go into that. So how does that look like?
Sure. So broadly speaking, it feels like it just being aware enough to know that you like suck at it. So just being aware enough to know that you suck at peopling, right? So it's like seeing that someone's having a bad day and be like, what do I say? Do I say the TI thing and right like tell them how to fix it? Do I tell them right the nice FE thing to cheer them up? How do I do that? I've never done that before, so I wonder how they'll think if I just totally like 180 and I start FEing all the nice things when before I've been like a total jerk to them. I wonder how that'll look. And then yeah, it's all that to me. It's all that paranoia and all that stuff.
Yeah. Paranoia also ties into the introverted intuition as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. Welcome to this lovely Q&A with the equally lovely Vchuefeu. Feel free to ask your questions in the live chat to the side. And it doesn't have to be about the cognitive functions or about type explicitly. You can ask indirect questions and we will end up talking about the functions anyway. So I believe that one of the best ways to get to type is to figure out how to get to it indirectly rather than trying to do the front and direct approach. It'll generate more discussion that way. And so we will go for the first question. What is your favorite pastime?
Uh, ooh, like favorite in one word. I would say I have multiple favorites. So right, just stuff like like either like watching I'm one of those nerds, right? I'm one of those nerds that watch like the animes and plays the video games and does all that stuff, binge watching, Netflix and all that stuff. So that's one of my like I guess favorite pastimes. Another favorite pastime is just diving down like rabbit holes, which is totally separate from consuming stuff like the animes and the video games. I feel like just diving down a rabbit hole is like opening up Wikipedia or opening up YouTube and just following that kind of breadcrumb trails too. So just getting lost in the YouTube rabbit holes. That's always fun too. Um, other is probably just music, right? I'm trying to do like singing stuff, so that's also like a favorite, right? I wouldn't consider it as like the favorite, but it's one of those.
Nice. How good do you relate to other ISTPs? Do you see many similarities or do they seem quite different from you? To you?
I I don't relate to that stereotypical ISTP stereotype of the mechanic, right? the mechanic that fixes the cars and is good with the tools and stuff like that. I'm not so mechanically inclined in that sense. So I don't relate to that stereotypical ISTP, but I don't think I've ran into other ISTPs in the wild, but I'm not actively running around typing people either. So that's not a help to me. So please ask questions that aren't related to type.
Yeah. If you're an ISTP that also wants to maybe connect, then we can have a bigger sample size as well. So feel free to email me if you want to be on. I'm always looking for sensing types. So if you are a sensor, like with an S in your code, I have a hard time sourcing. So I would love for you to email me if you want to be on Type Talks, especially within that category though. What are some of the main misconceptions in MBTI that you'd like to have corrected, either regarding specific types or a framework as a whole? We mentioned one earlier, and it was the mechanic stereotype that all ISTPs are mechanics, because a lot of them don't do that. And some mechanics aren't even ISTP. And so there's
yes,
that.
yes. Mm-hmm. Then I think just probably like, if I want to say probably just sensing functions in general, just probably someone needs to go down there and sort out all that stuff, because like it really is. Yeah. Like, am I good with tools and fixing cars? Not really. Am I a hardcore adrenaline junkie? Not really. I guess I'm an N then. Right? That's what it feels like. So that's probably why it took me a hard time to figure out I was an ISTP over something like an INTP.
Absolutely.
So yeah, someone needs to get down there and just fix what sensing looks like, get a more accurate description of that, because it really does seem to fall on two extremes of a spectrum for sensing.
Yeah. A majority of ISTPs start off their MBTI journey thinking they're INTPs because of the descriptions of the ISTP fit a certain subsection of ISTPs, but not all of them. And so the TI heavy descriptions actually go to the INTP, and sometimes the ISTP descriptions sound a little bit more ESTP like because the SE is so emphasized in the description. Yeah. And some ISTPs don't have that strong of a relationship with their SE yet in their life. And it's not at the level of an ESTP's SE. Like, they're not fully impulsive. They're actually extremely cautious for some of them. So that's pretty interesting. Do you tinker? What are your favorite topics, projects to tinker with?
Tinker. Not really. I feel like even though I lead with TI, I don't feel like I'm like smart enough to like tinker. Like, the best thing I would say is like remix, but then I feel like, are we getting to semantics, Joyce, with remix and tinkering? Would you define the two as the same words?
How would you define those words?
I think tinker to me feels like it's someone who wants to like actually mess with things to like try to get with an end result, whereas remixing, you just take like the best of, whatever you are and just kind of like smashing them together to remix it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. They're different but similar. They're experimental. They share that quality. Just how you like to experiment with different food combinations. Do you like math or science?
Do I like? I don't like them. Like, I'm not anti math or science, but like it's not my passion of mine. Like, if yeah. So like science is nice. Like, being able to talk through this thing called the internet is nice. Science did that, and I'm sure there's some math behind it too. So I don't. It's not like my passion, but yeah, like sure, I could like math and science. I guess I'm kind of mad about them.
Do you know what you like, Vchuefeu? Do you know what you're passionate about?
Oh, what is a like? Right, that's right time to open up. I mean, how deep into that do we want to go? Do we want to dive down a rabbit hole here, or do we want to keep it broad? I can
Go down the rabbit hole.
go down the rabbit hole. I mean, right. So like, I want to say, right, I like the easiest way would be just to say I like the stuff I like. So it's like just stuff like there's certain like genres of music I like, the right, the all the shows and all the games I play and all that stuff. Right, all the just that stuff, right? Like the kind of the foods I like to eat, all that stuff. Like, that's just the stuff I like. So
You
what
have
do
a
you want
hard
more?
time knowing what you like, though. Like, you have a hard time kind of being in touch with your emotions, actually. I think with your singing, it's like sometimes it's hard to channel emotion in your singing, and that's one of the things that, because it doesn't always feel like you're expressing a part of you. It just feels like you're trying to hit a technicality. If that makes sense.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you go into that?
Like hitting the technicality or just the lack of
Both.
the both. So yeah, so hitting the technicality is like it'd be like how do I want to explain this? So with music and singing, right? It's like I want to hit like the technicalities, but like there's that clearly like objective sense. Like I need to hit the right pitches and stuff. Duh. It's like I need to be on time, be in rhythm. I need to, make sure the words are the right words. There's all that like technicality stuff that's very objectable, but then there's also like the technical stuff that, I like that's more personal to me. So it's like stuff like, okay, what part of the range are they in? What's like their style, right? Are they emphasizing right consonants more, vowels more? Is there vibrato? Is there not vibratos? Is it straight tone? Is this a clean tone? Other things like what is the overall like color of their voice they're going for, right? Are they trying to go for like a more vulnerable tone? Is this more like a party song? So it's a more like a hell yeah kind of tone? Is it more of a kind of like sad tone? There's all like that stuff too. And that's the kind of technicalities that kind of trip me up and get me working on. So when I'm so focused on that, it's probably a lot harder to try to focus on the emotion and just feel the emotion and be like, okay, it's the sad song, so just bleh, just sing the sad. I'm more worried about, right, is the tone right? Is all these technical things right?
Yeah. What is your relationship to your own emotions?
What is my relationship to my own emotions? I don't know. I guess they're there. I don't know. It's hard having, I think, FE fourth and then having FI eight or eighth. Yeah. So it's like they're there, I guess. Like I know that they're there, but sometimes I feel like I feel emotions, but like I'm not so oblivious to that. But it's like just trying to put the right word to it. That's what's more makes it more difficult with emotions.
What is your emotional range? What are you typically feeling?
So my range is usually like content, right? So it's like content, and then like above content is like this happy, and then below content is like what's the word, like angry, I guess. So it's those three, and I want to keep in the middle.
Got it. What are the stack of things behind you?
That's my shelf of like just the loose like video games and stuff, and then on the bottom shelf I've got like some of the anime stuff, all the like DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. But yeah, it's getting a little antiquated just because a lot of people want to stream their media these days. No one wants to actually do hard copies of stuff. I miss those days.
How are you at multitasking?
Not very good. Like I think probably because I get so focused in like tunnel visions, I get focused in these modes that it's really hard for me to like multitask in like that stereotypical sense of being able to jump from one task to another. I don't know if that's just me being able to be so present with that task that it's like to completely like let go of that task and switch gears is a thing, or if I just innately just suck at multitasking. But I'm not very good.
What types do you get along with the most?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go around like typing people and saying, oh, they're, this type and I'm not going to get along with. I'll, I guess play it by ear, see how they are or aren't. And then, maybe if I'm really bored, I'll think about typing them. But yeah, like typing is not like the first thing I try to do with somebody.
Your answers are super succinct.
So
I'm wondering, Vchuefeu, how about your brother? He's like an ISTJ, right?
Correct. Yeah. But I mean, before he was an ISTJ, he was like my brother too. So I would put that hierarchy over our MBTI type. That's why I said, I wouldn't get along with a person based on their type and whatnot. Like that relationship of him being, a brother to me supersedes whatever his MBTI type is. Now, if he was an asshole to me and a certain type, then sure, whatever. But, he's not. So he's my brother first, and then his ISTJ MBTI type second. And that's how I want to view with it with all people.
Got it. Get it. Good. And so I'm wondering, what are some compare and contrasts between you and your brother? What do you notice that is different between you both?
So he's the ISTJ. So broadly speaking, right, they're definitely a lot slower. We tend to play like a lot of games together. I'll notice he's like a lot more slower to like be able to just react to something or do something. But he's a lot more, because he's a lot more slower, he's a lot more I guess accurate's a better word. I'm thinking of how, right, specific examples. So we're recently playing through like Borderlands 3 on co-op right now. And so I'm the guy that's like wielding the shotgun. So I'm like, like right there in front of, all the Borderlands 3 enemies and stuff. But that's because, I use shotguns because in games I can't aim for shit. So don't ask me to play a sniper class. But he, as the ICJ, he's a lot slower, but he's a much more like better aim than I'll ever be. So a lot of times he'll be in the back picking off enemies and all that. And here I am with a shotgun running, face first into enemies just because I can't aim. But because he can aim, he'll sit back there and he'll just pick off enemies one by one by one. So even though he's a lot more slower, he's a lot more accurate in that regard.
Yeah, even in how you both approach music is a little different too, right? Could you go into that?
Correct. Yeah. So with him, he's a lot more. He wants to learn a lot more of the I guess he's a lot better at the TE aspects of music. So stuff like learning the scales and learning the chords, how to play the instrument, all that stuff, all the objectifiable, I guess, TE aspects of music. That stuff he knows. Like, so to play, like, say, to go up and down like some of the major scales, he knows all that. You asked me to do all that, and I couldn't name you which scale I'm going up and down, even though I'm the supposed singer. Like, I just have to, I guess, intuit the scale in the song, and if it's in my range, then sure. But he's a lot more technical with that. But with me, it's a lot more TI. What's the word? Accurate, I guess. But it's not really accurate. I'll think of the word. But with me, it's a lot more like I just have to intuit the music. It's like, okay, so because the song sits here, then okay, these notes are probably the next notes in the line, in the melody, because that's where the singer was going, and that's where the mood of the song is going. Whereas with him, he'd probably want to know what the scale of the song is in, and then be like, oh, okay, so we're in this scale, and because this scale has these notes, the singer's probably going this way. Whereas with me, I'm like, da 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 da. That's where the singer's gonna go. There's no like objectifiable TE sense of, okay, why that note? I just kind of had a feel for it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of more intuitive quality to extroverted sensing. And
Mm-hmm.
so the word intuitive isn't, when it's used in the colloquial sense, it sometimes is referring to extroverted sensing, because that's actually very visceral and very instinctual and very, you just
Correct. Yeah,
feel it.
which again goes back to the fact that like the definitions for like sensing is just so, to me, they feel so off, because I guess that's colloquially what intuitive, but like I'm still sensing that in a way, but someone needs to go out there and define it.
Yeah, there needs to be more sensing accurate descriptions out there, because the intuitive ones get multiple essays and just hundreds and hundreds of nuances and pages, and then the sensing descriptions are one page, and it's, you like sports, or
You're an
you look
adrenaline
around.
junkie, and you jump out of planes, and you live in the moment, bro. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not like that 100%. So yeah, it's really discouraging when the stereotypical SE descriptions or even SI don't line up too. Because it's the same thing with like my little brother. Like, again, we're going tangents here, but like SI is like all detail oriented and past oriented and like super rigid and stuff. And it's like he's not like that. Like he likes to look at the details and look at the what's of stuff, but he's not like super hardcore like detail oriented.
Got it. How do you see your extroverted sensing, SE?
How do I see my perceiving function? Deep questions. I guess like I don't know if like, to me the word see kind of implies that like it's a vision thing. Like sometimes I feel like it's just like such a woo word, but like an energy of stuff. So sometimes it's like seeing, but like if it's food, like I don't see the flavors. Like once like something like is in my mouth, and I can like I guess taste that. So it's like I guess just picking off from like vibes or energy that whatever things gives off, and me using I guess the appropriate sense for it. So it's like for music, it's like trying to like see, or not see, hear what the next notes or the notes is going to be, or with like games, it's like seeing where like the next enemy is going to move in Borderlands 3. With food, it's like trying to taste where the flavors are going as say a stew or my pho gets eaten. So it's like I'm not using like one sense. It's like just trying to pick up on all the energies and trying to use the appropriate thing to pick up on it.
There is this instinctual ability to gauge in the moment movement, kind of almost knowing how things are going to be headed, in a,
Yeah.
not in a consciously doing it, but it's almost like a visceral, instinctual kind of understanding of it.
It's visceral, and then also, I guess, like, I've also learned to like value certain things, right? So like if I'm playing a video game, I'm not gonna like lick the controller. So in some senses, I can like turn off other things. I'm not gonna be able to like smell a video game, but like say taste would be a lot useful for like cooking and all that. Where like, you know, I'm not gonna be able to hear my food per se, but I can like taste my food and smell my food. So it's being able to like again pick which energy it gives off. And so I know, okay, I'm playing a video game. I probably don't need to like taste my controller. But if I'm cooking something, I'll be like, okay, I definitely need to focus more on tasting things and less on hearing things.
There's this element of relevancy with extroverted sensing. Is it relevant to use this sense in this situation? Got it. What is a function that's hard for you to understand?
Any. It's both a function that's hard for me to understand and the function I'd want to live a day with, just be able to get out of this tunnel vision mode and just, any. Like, I can't even fathom what any sounds like. I just say that as words out of my mouth.
You also have an interesting relationship with Fi too. That's confusing for you.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
So any first, Fi second, those would be the two functions.
What parts of those functions do you find hard to understand?
Any is just so like, it's just so weird that like, because to me it feels like with my function, it feels like Istp stuff. It feels like I'm just like stuck in like the one path in life or whatever. And any feels like you can like what's the word? You can like multi-dimensional like dimension hop. Like you can travel between like parallel universes and all that, and like be like, okay, oh, I don't like this. I'm gonna jump over to universe 612 and do that for a little bit and be like, oh, 612 kind of sucks. I'm gonna jump back to universe 0. That's what any feels like to me. And then when you jump, I'm stuck here in like universe 616. Be like, can I go, please? Please? But I can't.
Yeah. It's also sometimes how you answer my questions so on point, and then it's just silence, and I feel like I have to ask you another question because you're very good at directly answering my question, but then the expansiveness, the adding on, the interpretations, the variations of seeing it, the variations of patterns. ISTPs don't typically expand speech because they're reducing it to understand the evolving sense of reality more, almost.
Yeah, exactly. Or even me, like if I just keep talking, I feel like it gets kind of boring because, I already made my point.
Yeah, you're like, main point is this. All right, don't really have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, were you unclear with the point? Did I is our premises of what we're talking about, was that misaligned? Then I can elaborate. But it's like, how are you feeling today? Good. The end.
Yeah. How about Fi? What is hard for you to understand about that function?
I think just because it feels like the same side of like the TI, like not coin, but like that kind of coin, right? Because they're both identity functions, right? I feel like if I dive so far down TI, I get to Fi, but because I'm just so in TI that I just don't fundamentally get to the other side that is Fi. So it's like the same.
To be Fi?
Like, I guess just liking something, or I don't know. That's what it feels like. It's like, it's like I could like TI like something, but I couldn't imagine coming to liking the same thing through an Fi way. But they both can like the same thing in the same way, but just through two totally parallel functions, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And with your singing instructors, their number one point of improvement in helping you sing is actually put the emotion in your voice or feel it.
Correct. Yeah, that's not the thing, but like that's one of the big themes that shows up again and again.
Yeah, it's like, Vchuefeu, get in your feeling functions. You have this. You got this. What do you do for a living?
I just work in retail, right? It's just work in retail.
Do you consider yourself motivated by competitive activities or goals?
Not competitive compared relative to like other people and stuff. So like I don't want to be competitive in the sense of like getting in a competition and like winning like first place, but I guess I feel like it's either I'm competitive with myself or I have like, I guess, high standards for myself. I could see how, if I think about it, I could see the two as being similar, but I don't know, Joyce, do you think being competitive and having high standards are the same thing, or?
They're different. Competitive, it indicates comparison in some form. It's like you're
Correct,
comparing
yeah.
yourself to do better than either yourself or other people.
That's what I'm thinking. And then, but because you're comparing, that usually means, right, if I have high standards and I'm comparing myself to, say, like, right, the first place person, wouldn't that kind of look competitive?
That could be, yeah. Well, competitive often comes with the connotation of doing better than another person. So maybe high standards could be doing well in regards to your own high standards for yourself, but you're not necessarily competing with anyone outside yourself.
That's what I was thinking, yeah, because I was, again, relating this back to, like, singing, right? Like, I'm not competitive. I'm going to be like, I'm going to be better than you, loser. And it's like, I've got high standards for myself and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's hard. Like, yeah, are high standards and being competitive the same thing? I don't know.
You get into the clarifying, all right, is this concept really
Yeah, we
this
get into
concept?
clarifying, and then I'm like, standards and competitive, and then then I have to Google what is competitive, and yeah.
What does your brain get drawn towards when listening to music? Do you focus on lyrics, themes, or do you like breaking down and listening to how the instruments flow and interact?
What does my brain get drawn towards? I think, I hate to say it in the sense, but like just some sort of like musical like hook. So there's usually some, yes. So it's whatever the vibe or energy of the song is. So I'm not going out like looking for things. Like I'll stumble across a song, and then as I start listening, I'll go, oh, I like the way the singer sings. Oh, I like the way the guitar goes. Oh, I like the way the bass goes. Or if I'm like stumble across a music video, I'll be like, oh, I like the way this band looks. Like all that stuff. So it's like it's whatever vibe that I think I get from the song, or whatever I think the band is trying to put out from the song. But there's not like, I'm not going out looking for like specific things. Like I stay within like the genre of stuff I like to listen to and all that stuff and all that. So I'm not like really going out there just really like exploring a bunch of random stuff. But within the genre, I'll try to pick out things here and there. But that's not a really helpful answer, because I'm not like, oh, I like songs in this, the like in this chord progression. I like songs in this scale or in these, scales and stuff. It's nothing like really, I guess that TE sense of music is just a TI sense of what I like.
How do you experience the TI-NI loop?
How do I experience it? I think it's just to me, it feels like just going back to fundamentally questioning everything. It's like, what is feeling? What is music? What is MBTI? So it just feels like just re-questioning, re-examining everything, and then doubting yourself again, and then re-examining, and then I just get to a point where like I'm just doubting myself, be like, what if I just didn't perceive that right? Like, was it that spicy? What is a million Scoville units?
Yeah, it can also make an ISTP predict the end game of things, if you can go into that.
Sure, yeah. So part of that too is trying to like see where, like if we get railroaded on this path, where does this take us? Be like, I'm trying to think. Doodle-doo. Oh, like in music, right? Again, right? So specific examples, like, oh, if I say if I launch my career in this one genre, then am I just stuck in that genre? How do I pivot if I'm stuck in this genre and then like 5 years later I don't like this genre? What if I just totally give up singing? What if I become, like a content creator, an influencer? Like, what should I do? Should I start with like, say, video games? Sure, I like video games. What about 10 years later? Will I like video games then? I don't know. What happens if I don't like video games, but my fan base does? But again, is that, I guess, yeah, that's looping, but I don't know if that feels too specific, or is that just how?
It's a part of the loop for some ISTPs, because the NI is about foreseeing the future. It's almost having that present or future tense orientation.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
I feel like sometimes, like I think about like that big picture stuff, and then I think about the details. Okay, it's like, how's that relevant to me? And then I have to like, I jump back and forth between, me, big picture, me, big picture. So is that part of the loop too?
yeah, that is, yeah. To the point of being a little bit afraid to trial and error with your extroverted sensing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, right, that goes back to that any.
Absolutely. Especially when you're relatively strong in NI, you're likely to mistype as an INTP or INTJ as an ISTP. Been there myself. This is extremely true. A lot of ISTPs start out in MBTI as an INTP, or even they have a slight moment of INTJ wondering, but then they realize, man, I'm not organized enough or planned enough to be an INTJ.
Well,
Something
that too, and like, starting at the way beginning, like, just I knew I never had like an INTJ as a thing, just because like I definitely knew I was a perceiver. So if I was jumping between like INTP and like ISFP too.
Yeah, what are the things you notice the most when you're with humans?
The thing I noticed most is probably fourth FE, FE fourth. It's like I call them like ninja mind games. It's like all the all the ninja mind games everyone plays with each other. That's what it feels like. Just all the FE stuff.
Mm. What do you typically do in social situations?
Not much. Like yes, yeah, not much.
Do you
It's
wait for
like
people to initiate with you?
yeah, like I'll wait for that. Like I'm trying to stay as neutral as possible. I'm not going around just being a total like jerk to everybody. So I'm not doing that, right? I'm aware enough to know to not do that. But yeah, I'm not going around initiating with people and doing all that. I'll usually probably wait for people to initiate it for me.
Yeah. Chufu is also an Enneagram 5 wing 6, and so that adds a flavoring to it too. A lot of ISTPs are 5s.
Mm-hmm.
And that adds to the waiting for people to initiate with you.
Then I'd imagine it's a different flavor of ISTP2 if you're a 5, because I'm sure you have ISTPs and other Enneagrams types.
Absolutely. I would agree. Very much so. With NI lower in your stack, do you actively search for patterns? For me, patterns just appear unconsciously. How is your relationship to pattern recognition?
Um, I think with patterns, I feel like I notice it when like it kind of shows itself up, because it's like say to do it's like rolling dice, right? So it's like right, it's like random chance and all that, but then sometimes it feels like, oh, okay, the dice are favoring all the numbers less than 10 today, so maybe I should guess with a number less than 10. Or it's like, oh, today I'm rolling a little high today, maybe I should guess numbers higher than 10, something like that. So I think for me, unfortunately, maybe it's like seeing patterns that are or probably aren't there.
Mm. That's where the NI paranoia in the third slot shows up. When you
Yes.
can see the patterns and you're like, oh, I'm paranoid that that pattern is actually the most likely one. Ooh, okay. When are you going to sing for us, Chufu? He is not going to sing for us, but he can tell us about his method of singing and how he goes about it. And so tell us a little bit about your process with singing, I guess, Chufu. What makes the way that you sing a little different from typical singers, would you posit?
I think for better or for worse, I'm oftentimes aiming for accuracy in like the music I want. So like a lot of the artists I listen to, it's a lot of like male singers, but I won't change the key of the song, which is both, again, for better or for worse, like a rough situation, because I am looking for that accuracy, right? And so if I change the key of the song, if I bump it up, or I'm supposed to bump it down, that's supposed to make it easier for me as a singer, but to me that's not accurate. It's like they put it in this key, duh, and then if they perform it live in a lower key, that's on them because they're the original creator and stuff, sure. But to me, like, I do stuff like that, so it's stuff like trying to be as accurate to as the singer or the intent or the energy of the song as possible. So it's like, okay, so in this part here, they definitely didn't flip in a falsetto, but I did. I need to get better at that, scrub. So I'll do stuff like that, or be like, okay, in this part of their voice, they stayed in this, like, the mixed voice a little longer, so I need to try to do that in there. I try to need to not let go. Or what else? It's like, oh, like they added a little vibrato here. I don't have that vibrato in my voice at all. How do I get that? It's all these like little technical things that make it accurate. So I guess I sing in that. I sing my music in that sense, which for better or for worse is how I approach music.
And that makes it differ from the ISFP. So if it were an FI dominant type, they would sing as a part of expressing who they are or expressing a part of themselves. So music is more of a personal and emotionally deeply felt process for FI, Whereas for TI, it's more like the craft itself is more important in the singing process.
Yeah, like the craft should speak for itself, and because of the choices the artist made in the craft, they're also expressing a part of themselves in a certain way too.
His TI is sharp, fire emoji. Did you get any anxiety about public speaking or performing in front of others? Stage fright?
Um, I'd be lying if I said no, but then right, something that we've also worked with is also trying to identify when it's like anxiety and when it's like, say, like this excitement for the stage too. It's like, because there's like anxiety and like that negative sense, like that kind of that, the worries and all that stuff, and then there's also like excitement too, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna go on stage or go speak in front of this crowd. Hell yeah, let's go kick ass. And then there's anxiety, like, oh no, like I don't know my song. I don't know how to sing the words. What if the crowd's looking at me like, oh my god, the person right before me just really good. So I'd be lying if I said yeah. If I got anxious, but then part of it too is trying to like sift through what's anxiety and what's excitement, and trying to make sure you live more, I guess, in the excitement side of the public speaking instead of the anxiety side. But I still feel anxious too.
Get it, got it, good. So with anxiety, it's easily translated into adrenaline. You can either feel really amazing from the sense of pent up energy in you. It can actually make you feel more alive and more present and more alert, or it can make you feel more scared, depending on how you choose to interpret that emotion. It's
Correct. Yeah. And
pretty
then with
fascinating.
like, and then I'll distinguish from like public speaking and music. Like the few times I've done like public speaking, it wasn't for anything professional. It was more for like family, friends and stuff. That I was a little more off the cuff. There wasn't like any hardcore scripts and stuff. I had like bullet points. So I just walked up, on stage, and I just kind of winged it through what I was going to say and stuff. With music, it's a lot more better, for better for worse. It's a lot nicer to rest into the fact that this song has like structure, and depending on how you're practicing and all that, you'll know what's going to happen, even if you mix it up. Like maybe you'll talk during the solo, maybe you'll talk before you start the song. So with music, once you start getting into it, there's like a little bit of a structure to it. But when I'm like, say, doing the little few bits of public speaking that I did, I was just winging it up there.
How social are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Probably like 2 to a 4, somewhere in that range. More on like
Got
the
it.
lower end side, yeah.
What is your number one anime?
The number one-est anime ever. Oh boy. Because I'm looking at my shelf because I like different shows for different reasons, so it's hard to quantify the one best show ever that will do everything. Because each show brings its own separate things to the to, I guess, my palette of taste. I like, I'll put the same shows on like the same tier list. So I'm looking at my I think today, right now, I'll say probably like season 3 of the Digimon season 3, Digimon Tamers. Just because that really, in terms of like the Digimon franchise, that really, it was a nice mix up having doing all that stuff. If you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about. But I'll say Digimon season 03 today. Ask me another day, and I'll probably have a different answer.
Yeah. Because you consume a lot of anime, it's hard to know which one is your favorite, just because you watch a lot and that changes. What is your favorite? What is your interest in MBTI? What was the revelation that made you more receptive to it?
I think it's, I'm not the first person to say it. It just gave me a way to like TI explain how people effy. Yep. It wasn't for, profiling people or fixing, some catastrophic, marriage I had or something. It was a nice language, a nice system for me to be able to TI explain, how people effy and do all the effy things.
Effie is quite the mysterious function, indeed. Yeah. I actually did a typing session with Vchuefeu, and that's how I met this wonderful being that is in front of me. What stresses you out?
I'd probably say like, do I want to say people? Keep it people. I think people, and also like, probably like judgments, right, that people bring and stuff, right? Because part of that, yeah, I want to say people, just people and like judgments that he'll bring.
Mm. What about their judgments are scary?
It feels like the fact that judgments are everlasting and stuff, or that like you don't get to explain your case, and that sometimes in order for me to like want a TI explain something properly, I have to like keep explaining and get more accurate details, and by then I've boarded most people. Most people have usually made their judgments and moved on, whereas I feel like when they're in the mood to hear you out, then judgments seem a lot less apparent.
There's also the element of IPs not being everyone's cup of tea. And so they know that even if you like their niche, they have a part of that niche that they specifically like. And so not everyone is receptive or will be nice to that. And so oftentimes the individuality or the individualistic nature of TI or FI makes them a little bit more on the outskirts of mainstream. And so that can cause them a little bit of stress, being afraid of being judged by other people.
Being judged, or like I say, like it feels like I'm in the minority of a minority. And that's what it feels like sometimes. It's like, oh, you're in this niche thing, but then inside your niche group, you also have a niche opinion inside that group too. And so you become a minority of a minority too.
Mm-hmm. TI really prioritizes having a mind of its own apart from what other people are thinking. And so sometimes it'll have a perspective or a hot take on things that other people do not share. And so they can sometimes feel a little different than the mainstream in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I relate to your thought process of TI and I loop 100% the way you explained it. You're resonating with the ISTPs, Vchuefeu.
Oh, okay.
How do you firm friendships? What do you value in friends and family, people close to you? Form friendships.
I don't know about forming friendships. I think getting like an outside perspective. I think for me, one thing I appreciate just having things be low key about about everything. It's like just being kind of like just low key and like chill about things. Cause yeah, like I'm thinking again back to like my little brother. It's like if I'll like just like we don't make a big deal like say, hey, do you want to play Borderlands 3? Well, we need to schedule it on this time on this calendar because I'm free this day, and blah blah blah. You need to wake up early to play with me. It's like it's just really low key. It's like he'll just walk by and he'll be like, you want to play Borderlands 3 today? And I'm like, sure. And then we'll just play for like 4 hours. Or it's the other way with me. It's like I'll just ask him low key, be like, do you want to play Borderlands 3 today? He's like, sure. And I'm like, okay, cool. Or some days he'll ask me like, do you want to play? I'm like, no, I'm tired. And he's like, okay. And then he just does his own thing. So I think probably keeping things like really like low key and chill probably helps.
What do you typically focus on in video games? What is the selling point, or what is the most energizing or fulfilling part of playing a video game for you? Is it the playing with people? Is it the storyline? Is it the action? What sticks out?
Definitely not playing with people. That's I'm definitely not playing like like a Dota game or like anything competitive like say Rainbow Six Siege or Counter-Strike Go. I am not playing anything like that. I'm not that good at aiming, so to drag down like an entire team or an entire lobby feels really bad. So I'd stick more for PvE, co-op games. But right now, Borderlands 3, we're just playing it more for like that looter shooter co-op vibe that you could easily get with like say Destiny or I don't know, all the other looter shooters. But again, each game brings different things to the table. So like right now, like as we're playing through Borderlands 3, like we're just MSTK3ing Mystery Space Theatering the whole story. Like we're just picking it apart, ripping it apart to shreds and all that stuff. But say if I were to play another game like say To the Moon, I'm not playing that because of its gripping action set pieces and stuff. Like I'm playing that more for like its little touching little story and all that stuff. So again, each game brings something different to the table. So I'm there to experience the game for like what it is or what it should be.
Interesting. How often do you cry when you play an emotionally moving game or when you play games?
Not too often. Like, To the Moon, definitely, that was like a definite tearjerker. But say like Borderlands 3, we're not like crying, either in the sad sense or in the laugh out loud sense. But other things will do different things too. So like even like watching like Let's Plays of say like I'm thinking of like Ace Attorney, watching all that and like watching all, or reacting to the, oh my gods, like reacting to all the turnabouts inside Ace Attorney. That's really fun too. But that's a totally different narrative sense from like, say, To the Moon. To the Moon doesn't deliver on that kind of like hardcore investigative, attorney sense that say Ace Attorney did. And that's different from, say, something like Danganronpa 2, which is also, murder and mystery stuff. But then you've got the whole thing with the schools, and they're tackling like totally different themes and all that stuff.
Absolutely. With Phoenix Wright, so Ace Attorneys is what you brought up. That's actually, that game franchise is my all-time favorite. And it's a good way to practice your introverted thinking, TI, no matter what type you are. It's basically you get someone's testimony and then you find the contradictions and then you point out the contradictions. It is very fulfilling. If you want another brain teaser game, Professor Layton is good for that TI flexing if you want. But anyone can improve it. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say with like Ace Attorney, the problem is if you don't understand the logic that they're trying to build, then you get kind of stuck, right? There's a few times where like you hit a dead end, right? You're thinking, oh, okay, I need to present this piece of evidence, objection. And then, you lose the life bar, you fail, and you're like, uh-oh, I don't know what the TI logic was going for. And then now you're just, looking a guide online, or you're just, throwing everything to the wall. So sometimes you run into that too. Or, we TI, cross-examine a parrot because that's a thing. Or a whale, or what else has Phoenix Wright cross-examined? I think spirits, probably, right?
Yeah, spirit mediums. Yeah.
Yes.
The dead, basically.
Yeah, the dead, and yeah. So TI practice, dead people.
What activity do you enjoy when hanging out with friends, either in real life or online? Drinking, video games, board games, clubbing, road trips, etc.
I definitely like, especially now that like I want to like avoid like drinking and stuff per se, just because it's like even though I'm like, I don't like losing that sense of like total like control and stuff. Like I want to be really present. So like partaking like even in alcohol, just getting like even a little tipsy, it's like, uh-oh, now I'm doubting myself and how I calibrate to the world. Like that gets a little scary. So I try to avoid partaking in like drinking and all that stuff. But in terms of like hanging out, like, usually maybe just going out to eat. It's like, I think I want to say like movies and stuff, because I'm really guilty of like, just talking through the movies again, kind of like Mystery Space Theater 3000, where like they just tear a movie apart on the TI premise. And so most people don't like that. So it's very hard to find people who will sit through a movie and just tear it apart with you too. So I'd probably say, to be safe, probably just eating.
Demolishing the plot lines that don't make sense or things that don't make sense with other people is one of your hobbies too. He's very clear in his speech. I would have thought it to be TE. There's also, so STs, when you hear any ST type talk, whether it's the ESTP, ESTJ, ISTP, ISTJ, there's actually a ST clearness to how they speak, just because when you have sensing and thinking in a stronger spot, you're able to convey your point in a very literal, in a very straightforward, in a very to the point, very realistic, very logical way, which is clearly communicated in general. How do ISTPs differ from ISTJs? Yeah,
I think for me, and that was going to tie back to what I was interrupting about, I think the big thing was just TE. Like TE feels like very like, like it feels very like IQ smart. I would not identify with being like IQ smart. Like I would not test into Mensa, that kind of thing. So that's how I, even though I sound very clear and stuff, but I wouldn't consider myself like that IQ kind of smart. And so that's, I think, the big difference. I had my own like trip up was understanding TI too, but back when I was trying to understand that, if I had to put, my flag down, I'd probably put in the TI over the TE, just because TE comes across as very IQ smart, and I am no way, like that.
There's another differentiation too. So ISTJs are more likely to have a proactive sense of TE, so they will actually be more TE about and structured about their environment, whereas an ISTP is a little bit of a jumbled mess with their environment. And when an ISTP is in a leadership role, they don't typically boss people around. They just let people do their thing. So it's like, you do your thing, just do whatever you want, is like the ISTP's way of managing people. It's like hands off, extremely hands off. Whereas an ISTJ, if they see the TE not going well, they're going to be more quick to go, I'm going to structure this. I'm going to, help people structure this. That was one of the big differences. ISTPs are chill, unless like given a reason to really, really not be, if that makes sense. But Vchuefeu, do you have anything to add? Because your brother is an ISTJ, so it would add to the nuance.
Correct.
there.
Yeah. And then also, right, another like dynamic too is that like, again, like I'm the oldest sibling, and whereas he's like, the youngest one. So, right, stereotypically you would think the oldest sibling like, supersedes the youngest siblings in terms of, right, like power dynamics and stuff. But because, again, what Joyce said, because like I'm more really chill and let back, I'll be like, if he, if my little brother makes the call on something, and I'm pretty sure he's right or something, then I'll let him make the call. I'm not gonna get upset and be like, oh, you're challenging me as the older brother, how dare you? Psh, psh, psh. Like if he makes the call and I'm pretty chill with it, it's not something super horrendous, then I'm like, okay, yeah, that's your call, do it. It's again very chill, very low key. Even though I'm the older brother, I should be I should be doing that stuff, but I really don't.
Absolutely. Another thing you will see as a trend is ISTJs are a little better with their money and managing their money and their resources because of
Yes.
TE and being an SJ, whereas an ISTP is going to be less likely to be good at managing their money because they don't have SI. And so you'll see an ISTP spending more than they make sometimes. Not all of them, right? I'm never generalizing when I'm saying statements about behavior, but I'm trying to illustrate a point, whereas the ISTJ is going to want to be prepared and ready and have almost this pile of things saved or hoarded, because the SI wants predictability and stability and cautiousness, whereas the ISTP is a little bit more in the moment, day by day approach. And sometimes this can be reflected in how they approach finances, but not all of them. Your upbringing can really change things. What are some other differences too, Vchuefeu, that you notice? You can always correct me too if I say anything that isn't true to your experience.
What are we talking about? TITE differences or
just ISTJ versus ISTP?
Oh, ISTJ, ISTP. I want to say like the big thing too is also that ISTJs like lead with SI, and like I'm not like detail oriented. That's why again I had a hunch that I was probably a perceiver first over a judger, just because even with the stereotypical descriptions of ISTJs being like traditions and routine and all that, it's like I still didn't identify with that, just because things like traditions and routines, especially more like my routines, are very like relaxed or something. They're very lax. They're very, like free flowing and all that. Whereas I always got the energy that ICJs were very like, like very concrete in the way they want to do things with their SI.
Absolutely. So you'll notice that. Another difference with the ISTP is I had a thought and then I lost it and now it's not coming back. So
It'll come back later.
It'll come back later. Do you get irritated if someone is rude with your grandma or grandpa? Because some ISTPs feel like NIFE is their identity.
I think I'm supposed to get rude. I think the problem is, right, another complexity, another layer to this puzzle is that, like, right, growing up in like stereotypical Asian cultures and stuff, you have a lot of what's the word? I guess venerations for your elders and stuff. And so overall in the culture it's a very bad faux pas to just be rude to your elders unless they did something totally horrible and like totally 180 out of there. So normally, like, I think because of the culture, that adds another layer to where everyone is supposed to be nice to their elders and to their grandmas and grandpas.
Yeah. So Vchuefeu, to piggyback over the last question, you talked about your ISTJ brother and sheet music and how you guys interpret musical sheet music different. Could you go into that?
Yeah. So with him, like, again, because he wants to learn all the again, like, I guess the TE ways of doing music, then he'll like want to learn what sheet music is, and he'll learn what on on sheet music, they have like the staff and stuff, and based on where the note is, that's what it is. He'll want to learn all that, and he'll be able to learn how to play sheet music, and he'll want to learn how to read sheet music. The musician, right, the singer, and me, I'm supposed to learn that too. But every time I sheet music, it shows up. I'm like, every good boy, FACE. I'm like stuck like that. I'm stuck in the not knowing the TE things of how to do the sheet music. But if it's like, say, my favorite song, or like, say, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, I'm like, I don't know what the TE sheet music says, but it's like twinkle twinkle. It's like that. Whereas with him, if like it's like, okay, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and that, he'd be like, I feel like he'd get a little lost. Be like, oh, what key are we in? Do I have the sheet music? Whereas with me, I'd be like, okay, whatever, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Let's do it live.
Absolutely. There was also the point about detail, attentiveness to detail. So ISTJs are actually way better at details. So they're going to be attentive to details, and they're going to be detail oriented, even if they don't care for it. Like ISTJs are the true detail oriented people. SJs are. Whereas the SPs, if you ask them about it, whether or not they're detail oriented, some of them will, like, a lot of them will say no, because they're attentive to the things happening around them in the moment, but they're not attentive to every single detail that or being detail oriented, because that level of thoroughness is typically found in SJs.
Correct. Then, like, with him, I'll notice, like, with music, he's really detailed in all the details. But for me, like, if the details are relative to the why of the song, then that'll be fine too. So, like, if it's detail relative to the why, then I'll go with it. But with him, he wants like exact details to the what. But I don't know. Did that muddy your point?
It's perfect.
Okay.
Another difference between the ISTP and the ISTJ is the SPs are a little bit more likely to make the same mistake more than twice. And so an ISTP might make one mistake, and then another one that's very similar to it, and another one that's a little bit similar to it. Whereas an ISTJ is less likely to repeat mistakes. SJs on a whole, once they go through a mistake, they might try to learn about a way to not go through that mistake again. Whereas SPs on a whole, it takes a few trial and errors to not make that mistake. So that's another difference as well. There are a lot of differences. Those are just the ones coming to mind. Do you feel more similar to INTPs or ISFPs?
I think, broadly speaking, I'd probably say ISFPs over INTPs, because again, even though INTPs lead with TI, they again came across as very like IQ, like smart too, and I definitely would not identify as like that IQ smart. It's like knowledgeable, sure, all that stuff, but like to like again like test in Mensa like high IQ smart, that was no way not me. And usually, like stereotypical INTP descriptions always came across as like IQ smart, but randoms.
How about ISFPs? Even if you haven't met them in real life, I guess the ones on my panels. How do you relate to them?
I think part of it, like what drew me more with like ISFPs was like just even though again both TIF are different, like just being able to like succinctly, I guess, like something and being able to like explain it like so thoroughly in a sense. Because that FI can come across like very strong too, just like how I guess TI would come across very strong. And so for ISFPs to be able to explain something with FI so well, and then do the whole SENI thing too, like that ran in parallel to how I thought. And so I thought maybe ISFP would be more true for me than INTP.
Got it. Do you find your sense of humor is on a different level, where it is out of phase from what other people expect? When they do get the punchline, it's fun watching the gears turn in their heads.
Yeah, I want to say my sense of humor is definitely different. And then also I think something that complicates it too is like what mode we're in. Like right now, like we're not in like a serious work mode. Like if I was like doing like say open heart surgery on someone, it'd be like, I would not be joking around. That's like definite like serious yes or no mode. Like that is not a mode to be joking around. So like if you catch me in a work setting, I wouldn't be like as jovial as this. But like, for like, say like with me and my little brother, if we're just goofing around in like Borderlands 3 and it's all play, then yeah, sure, I'll be a little more humorous and stuff. So yes, my humor is on, I've got, I guess, different tastes in humors, but also depending on where you catch me, you'll see me in different modes too. Like if I'm in work mode, yeah, I'm probably not going to be joking around stuff. Like I need, this stuff to get it done right. And I don't, joking around stuff can kind of like, misinterpret stuff when, you need stuff very yes or no. But if it's like in a play mode where like, the expectations just to like kind of cut loose a little, then yeah, I'll probably be a little more jovial. And then when I'm more jovial in those situations, then yeah, probably my sense of humor doesn't match with other people also.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you need TE in order to make your TI sharper, or is TE overwhelming?
Do I need TE? I'd say yes, but I think right now with like TE feels so like, because to me, like I always feel like I describe TI as like dream logic. So there's never like any like, yeah, it comes across as like this kind of like dream logic that, you know, isn't supposed to make sense. Whereas TE wants to come across as, again, very like, I guess, you know, logical in the sense of logic and all the, you know, constructs of how to be a logical, reasonable person. So I feel like, yes, you know, that TE would help TI, but I feel like sometimes part of TI too is just letting people kind of, you know, roam around in that dream logic and letting like this kind of dream logic apply, even though it might not make sense in a TE sense too.
Yeah. People are talking about the Mensa in the live chat, and I just wanted to say that's also separate from personality type too.
I should not have name dropped that, huh?
just clarifying, like there isn't a type correlation exactly that I know about. Do you admire or appreciate? What do you admire and appreciate about dominant feeler types, and what do you find irritating and annoying?
I think it's the same. It'll be the same answer, but it's like when they're able to like do the ninja mind games, right? All the feeling ninja mind games. When they do it so well and so succinctly and so perfectly, you never know you got duped into the ninja mind games, right? Like if you're crying and they comfort you, you never think, oh, they're comforting me. You're like, and then they're like comfort you too, and all that. And so when it's done well like that, you don't notice it. But then, you know, when I see other people do it, and I'm like, oh, you're doing the ninja mind game tricks. Like that's when I notice it. So for both good and bad, it's when they can like do all the feely stuff.
What about it is irritating?
I think that probably, again, just like any other tool, they can both use it to like, you know, do whatever like purpose or thing they need. So maybe they're comforting a friend, but then maybe, you know, they want something in return later, or some, you know, maybe they're trying to like, you know, do other stuff again, all these ninja mind games with people.
Oh, it's hilarious how you call all F stuff ninja mind games or relational people stuff.
Because that's what it looks like. It's like you're playing like all these, yeah, ninja mind games. Because it's not like an overt like, I smash you with my sword and you bleed. It's like, yeah, it's like, okay, I'll do this thing here, and then okay, oh, you'll do this thing here. I'll do this jutsu here, and it's like, yeah, that's what it feels like.
Got it. What do you appreciate about the ninja mind games?
When it's done right, you don't notice you got like duped into it at all, right? So it's like when they're comforting you or when they're doing whatever, you know, the feely thing is. If you just accept it and go along with it, then like, you know, it does feel so good. You know, it is so nice and all that.
What do you focus on when choosing what to wear?
Not much right now, because like right now I've got like, you know, I got like my work attire. I've got then just my usual, like I've minimized my wardrobe right now, so like right now it's just red shirt, blue jeans, and that's really it. Like I really want to keep that minimal, just because I don't want to think about all my fashion choices and spend all these money on clothes and all that stuff. And so, you know, I've got lots of red shirts and lots of blue jeans, and I've got work attire, and then I've got, you know, winter wear and stuff for when it gets cold. And then, you know, I just have a few things to sleepwear. But besides that, I'm not like rocking out like this sick fashion sense or whatnot. I've minimized down my fashion just so I can put my focus on other things.
Absolutely. You're more function over fashion at this phase.
Yeah.
Do you have days where you feel more INFJ than ISTP?
INFJ. Sure. Like I
You're
guess I could call it.
very often in your TI-NI. Very often.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
wonder
sure
if that could make you feel a little bit INFJ. Like,
yeah, like so. I guess if an INFJ dipped down to where I was, then sure I could, I could call it that. Because I'm sure INFJs are probably just as cold or, you know, just as TI heavy too. But you know, that would require like, I guess, an INFJ going down, or me just being super, I don't know, FE, I guess, super FE NI.
ooh.
So sure, maybe question mark.
Is any of your parents dominant intuitive perceivers?
I don't know. Like again, they're my parents first, and then right, whatever MBTI functions like way at the bottom there. So
Got it. How's your parents' type and how has it affected you?
Again, I don't know what their type is, and so I wouldn't be able to answer on how that MBTI type affected me first, right? They're like, yeah. Again, my parents first, and then whatever at the bottom, somewhere down there is swimming their MBTI preference. But I've not gone around again actively typing people. I want to see people where they're at. I don't want to project what in MBTI type they are on people.
Mm. How's your relationship with abstract ideas, literature full of metaphors, poetic language?
I think. I think if it doesn't get too lost on me, then I'll appreciate it. But sometimes when like either I perceive that like the things are going over my head, or they are going over my head, then that's when I'll probably stop engaging with it. Like I don't want to criticize it for like say being too poetic, too abstract or stuff. Like clearly that's that's a different audience and stuff. So I'm not going to bash it for being that. But like, yeah, once it starts feeling like it's too in over my head, then I'll just, stop engaging with it, set it aside and let those people who, understand all that engage with it. But if like I engage with something and I keep understanding it, then yeah, like I'll keep diving into it. For like an anime example, I'd probably say like Serial Experiments Lane kind of fits that bill. Like it's a little bit out there in terms of anime. You're not going to find these high octane, fight scenes and stuff. You're not going to find all this Sakuga animation, but in terms of like, yeah, that kind of understanding, like Lane, I was able to get through, not feel like stupid. I'm trying to think of an anime where I just stopped watching because I just got so lost. I can't think of one yet. But like if I can keep understanding it or believe I understand what it is, I'll keep engaging with it. Once I feel like I'm in over my head, I'll just stop and set it aside and let those people have their fun with it.
What is your threshold for conceptual, abstract, theoretical conversation?
I want to say I don't know. Like usually, right? Like I think just because it feels so subjective that like I'll hit something. Like another anime would be something like Princess Tutu. So like,
Ooh.
yeah. But the problem, right? Like I kept engaging with it just because the story was so nice. But with Princess Tutu, there's a lot of stuff that they reference in terms of ballet and stuff. So there's a lot of ballet stuff that goes on, and a lot of the dances they do in each episode reference certain ballets and stuff. And so I knew that if I understood the ballet reference that the episode was going for, my understanding for the episode would be a whole lot better. But it was still engaging enough for me to like keep watching Princess Tutu. But I also was aware of the fact that I am missing out on a layer of complexity by not understanding all the ballet that just gets dropped in the show.
Got it. Now, feel free, everyone, to ask your questions in the live chat to the side. You have us all to yourself. When we have a smaller, more intimate crowd, we can get through all your questions. We can read through everything and get to know you more as a viewer. And you can establish that bond with us more. So feel free to ask Vchuefeu everything to your heart's content and more.
That does it help too that like just being so succinct with questions, let's just go bam, 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 right, and get things done, and we don't really get stuck on stuff. So now we can open it back up to people, right? Like now that I've taken care of the initial questions, again, I can flip it over to other people and be like, okay, now you can keep asking me questions because we're done. So
yeah, this is where the point of least resistance, extroverted intuition, comes in. ISTPs are typically man of few words, and so they'll answer things in a very succinct, vague way for a lot of them. Not everyone, right? But I noticed that that's definitely a trend. And so we go through them really fast.
For better or for worse, right?
Yeah, there's a linearness to Ni, Se, and so the linear answers cause not a lot of exploration into different NEs. You mentioned not actively typing the people around you. Have you ever noticed any types you tend to get along better or worse with? We did answer that a little earlier, and it was Vchuefeu. He doesn't really type the people around him. It's more like his family members that dictates the relationship more than the type does initially, so that the family is a little bit of a higher relevance to having an impact.
Yeah, relationships overall will supersede, whatever the MBTI type is. I don't want to become the other way around where the MBTI type supersedes my relationship with them, or have the MBTI type dictate, how I form my relationship with them. I want the person to be themselves first, right? Outside of the construct, outside of the system that is MBTI, if that's applying MBTI on them, then that's on me. But that's not fair for them to do whatever I need to do to fit my understanding of MBTI system, which leads into the next point. I don't tend to notice what MBTI types I tend to get along with, just because I, again, don't feel that confident in my understanding with MBTI. So part of it is me wanting people to be themselves first. One part of me is also my lack of, I guess, confidence in understanding MBTI and its intricacies and being sure enough in my understanding of it to be able to consistently type people anyways.
Absolutely. I would agree with your approach. Values and overall their deepest goals and who they are supersedes their type and how well they get along with you. However, there are trends definitely as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to dismiss that. They're probably, if someone, made an Excel spreadsheet and like followed my life, they could probably notice a trend. I just don't know what it is.
To be honest, if you want to get along well with an ISTP, you have to be the one initiating first with a lot of them, because sometimes they're waiting for someone to initiate with them. So if you really want to get close to an ISTP, you're going to have to make the first move for a lot of them. And sometimes making it clear that you want to be friends is important too. And so for me, having to repeat myself multiple times is a huge pet peeve. Is it the same for you?
Like, yes and no. Like, I think part of, right, like, I guess TI kind of links, it feels like it links back to F, because like if they like legitimately don't understand, then like I don't feel as bad explaining it or re-explaining it in a different way, just because I know like they fundamentally, like on a human level, like they want to understand you, but somewhere along the way that they didn't hit that understanding. So in that sense, I don't get as upset. But like if they just want to be an asshole, if they're just right, we're just like just teasing each other, stuff like that, then yeah, sure, like that can get annoying in both a bad sense and like both just like in a funny kind of sense too.
Yeah, and sometimes even TI users can annoy TE users. So in the sense that TI is very intricate with its logical understanding and it's trying to get to the purest logical understanding. And so sometimes it'll explain to you its TI reasoning without a clear endpoint or without a clear, okay, this is for sure the outcome results. And so it can make TE people impatient. So TE is like, all right, what are you going to do with that information? And TI is like, well, I want to make sure my understandings of it is the most purest understanding of it. And then the TE is like, what are you doing? Like, what are like you're logicking in your brain to a bunch of dead ends is what it looks like the TE. And so over TI can look like annoyance, like to the TE user. They're like, okay, chop chop. What are you getting at, TI?
Yeah, like this annoyance, this insistent need just to ask question, ask why, just because I guess it can, or it looks like it just can ask why just to like troll you.
Yeah, TI can look like it's making things overly difficult for the TE efficiency. It's like, all right, anime recommendations with great animation, great music.
I don't know how like normie I want to be. Do I want to drop something really niche and like really flex my muscles, or do I want to drop something really normie and come across as really normie? I think I'll probably go with the normie pick. I'd probably say like I wonder if people are gonna hate me. I'd want to say like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Just because like because it's recommendation. So I'm assuming like if you already hardcore watch anime, then you probably gloss your eyes and good. That you're the kind of people that you shouldn't be taking anime recommendations from me. But if you're just super like casual, or like you've never watched like any anime in your life, like you've watched like 0 animes, I'd probably say Evangelion, just because like you get like that whole story and blah blah blah. But then also because Evangelion's such like I feel like such a big touchstone in like Japanese pop culture and stuff. Like, right, the theme song, you see that. I feel like, well, I don't know if it is everywhere, but you see that a lot everywhere. You see a lot of the references to like I want to say mechs and Gundams, but that's probably not the right terms, to the Eva units. You see a lot of reference to that too, and so being able to like watch like a big touchstone of like Japanese anime culture and being able to like consume that in like one quick shot, I think is also really valuable in terms of a recommendation too. even though it's probably, not the most, bestest anime ever. There's that. And then, if you want something niche, if I want to flex, I'd probably say like this is a show I've had to watch, right? Because there's shows that in theory are probably like really good and stuff that I've yet to watch. And the show I'm thinking of is Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the old '80s series, not the new one. That one's not done yet. I want to wait till that one's done if they ever get the new one done. But like the really old like '80s, Legend of Galactic Heroes and that whole epic that is that that whole story that they tell, like that'd be a really nice deep one too. That's filled with a whole bunch of stuff. But again, I'm recommending a show that I've yet to watch too, which sounds hypocritical.
Yeah.
But that's an anime. Do we want to dive into music, Joyce, or do we want to move on to the next question too?
Sure, dive into some great musical recommendations.
Okay, so the problem with music is, right, like I listen to like a very niche genre inside, like, so first I listen to like Japanese rock music, and inside that I listen to like Visual Kei, which is in the least amount of words for anyone who's never heard of Visual Kei, it's like Japanese glam rock hair metal. And so that'll give you a sense of what, Visual Kei is going after if you've never listened to like a single song inside the genre. For a song inside VK. Do you want something modern or shoot? I don't know. I'd probably say in terms of recommendation, it's gonna feel weird saying this, but probably like Golden Bomber as a band, not a song, but like a band. The problem is a lot of times what a lot of Golden Bomber does, it's I recommend it because it's very humorous, so you're not going to see a lot of the big five that you would see with like other songs, and I'm sure they do things that are part of the big five, but a lot of their songs come across as really like humorous and funny and stuff. The problem you'll run into is some of their stuff is like parodies and homages to other bands too. And so I guess if you watch one of the Golden Bomber music videos and you're noticing that like something more is going on, then it probably is. And if you're interested in that something more, it may give you reason to deep dive further down into the genre too. So recently, I think they released a song that was a homage to like the band, I want to say Lunacy. And so, yeah, so they did a whole music video, and some of the stuff in their song was like an homage to that band. And if you watch that music video for the song and something caught your eye that there's something more going on underneath this music video, underneath all the funny stuff with the fish, then like you'll dive more into the genre. But if you watch it and you like just laugh at lol fish people, then yeah, that's probably enough for you too. So I'd say in terms of music, probably Golden Bomber. That should give you a nice soft poppy kind of way to dive into potentially VK, even though I mean, I don't know if Golden Bomber is the most hardcorest VK band out there.
What's the most hardcorest VK band?
I'm supposed to say stuff like from the 90s, right? Like X Japan or what else? I'm drawing a blank on all the big bands, right? Like I'd probably say X Japan, right? Like the big VK name from the 90s and stuff. And then you have, all the bunch of little bands and stuff too.
You mentioned Digimon as a favorite anime. Where do you stand in the great Pokemon versus Digimon supremacy debate, and why?
I think Pokemon has done everything else right but the anime. Like in terms of the anime storytelling, I feel like Digimon's got it beat in terms of like story, right? That whole arc with like, not we, but like there's the whole thing with Digimon Try and reintroducing the whole 0-1 cast yet again, and retelling that story and then retelling it yet again with a new season. Like that in terms of story, that's got to beat. And then I picked 03 as my favorite season just because it really does dive into like different themes and stuff that the 01 02 seasons never really dealt into. There's all that stuff. The next one I'd rate after that, if you want to dive down the Digimon rabbit holes, probably 05, where you've got a lead that doesn't wear the glasses, you've got a lead character that just One Punch Man's stuff to digivolve their Digimon and all that stuff. And so there's all that stuff. So the season 03 05, if you're sick of all the 01 stuff. But yeah, so again, in terms of that, like the Digimon story's got it better than the Pokemon anime story. But it's also, I feel bad for Pokemon fans because right now Pokemon's, I feel like, playing a lot of catch up to Digimon. They're introducing stuff like what mega evolutions or champions or the equivalent of it. It's like, oh my god, Digimon did that all the way back in like the early 90s, and Pokemon's playing catch up to Digimon. Like, what is going on with Pokemon right now? I feel bad. It's like, right? Because in the pop culture debate, like Pokemon always won out over Digimon, but now Pokemon is pulling ideas from Digimon. It's like, what is going on? It's like pretty soon, like if they all start talking and stuff, then yeah, it's almost like Digimon 1-for-1. And then if we get a giant penis demon, then we're in like Shin Megami territory, and it's like, oh my god, now we're just pulling from Shin Megami now. Like what? This is nuts. Like Digimon's always been separate from Shin Megami in that regard too. But the three have always run parallel to each other, and so I feel like once they really start cross pollinating with each other, it's going to get real scary. It's like, where do the franchises end and where do they begin?
Those are good questions. And so, are you familiar with Benjamin Siddiq? What do you respect about his work, interviews, or logic? He is also a ISTP.
Yeah, like I've run across the channel and all that stuff a lot, but I think my biggest problem, and it's nothing wrong with him, is that like I'm not as involved in the MBTI community as I probably leading on. So like if you're really hardcore into like MBTI content and watching interviews with other people, like that's really great. Like he's been able to like consistently put out interviews with people and all that stuff. But because like I feel like my interest in MBTI is so casual, like that the core of what he does of like interviewing people so you can learn about their types just doesn't appeal to me. Like I feel like I'm super casual into MBTI, which his content is not for. His content's not for like a casual fan. It's for like a super hardcore person who really wants to dive into people, their cognitive functions, and all the different systems and how they play out, and how that shows up differently for everybody. If I was really hardcore into MBTI, then yeah, his stuff would be great. But because I feel super casual, I feel like it doesn't apply to me.
You don't give yourself enough credit. Vchuefeu went to me knowing the shadow functions. And so his exposure was, all right, Joyce, I know about the shadow functions, so let's talk about that too. And I was like, that is not casual level MBTI. That is hardcore level MBTI. So it's just maybe the YouTube side of typology doesn't appeal to you as much, probably. But you know more than the average Joe, Vchuefeu.
I guess. But yeah, like this. So again, I feel like just what he aims for in terms of like the what the goal of his content is, and what my goal is in terms of consuming MBTI different, are like two totally different things. So I don't hate him or anything. It's just what we want from each other is just two totally different things.
Got it. Regarding FITI self function, I've spotted several people claiming that they have some degree of both. So do you personally feel like you have some degree of FI?
I'd say yes and no, right? Like that's the thing I question a lot. Like where does, because FIT are what, the same judging, right? Introverted judging functions.
Their identity functions.
Yeah. So I'm sure they could come across really similar, but because because TI is like my first function, I think I can't separate out where TI starts and where TI ends and FI begins. I'm sure in theory, if I had it like even like second or lower down my function stack, I'd be able to sift out where TI ends and where FI begins, or where FI ends and TI begins. But I think because I lead with TI, it's really hard for me to fundamentally sift out my hero function from FI.
There's an interesting thing. So you'll find TI people with a lot of niche interests, which you might associate with FI liking its things. A lot of TI dominant types, like you could say that Vchuefeu's love of VK or specific genres of things could be his FI. So you could make an argument where he does have pretty good FI, but you could also make another argument where he has zero FI as well. Mm-hmm. Because his emotional spectrum is so not nuanced. It's neutral, happy, and then there's that negative emotion there. But it's with FI people, if you ask them about their range of feelings, they're not going to answer like a TI dominant person will answer. FI tends to, this is complicated. FI with Enneagram 4 is the easiest to spot. So they'll typically answer with their ability to feel a lot of intense emotions and a wide spectrum of emotions, and very deep emotions, and very nuanced flavors of every single emotion. Whereas with Vchuefeu being TI dominant and also an Enneagram 5, he is going to have a harder time accessing the fact that he has emotions. And it's hard for you to kind of feel emotions without rationalizing them. So if you look at a feeling wheel, he'll start just analyzing feelings as opposed to really just feeling the feeling, which is what FI would do. I've always seen SE dominant types as high energy, never losing energy people. How do you compare SE in ISTP to ESTP and ESFP?
I'd want to say like with those types that lead with SE, like I feel like they just pull from like this. To me, it feels like this bottomless well of like infinite energy. Whereas like I feel like with my energy levels, it's like a candle. It's like some days, if I need it to burn brighter for more energy, I can do that. But then if you burn brighter, then your wick burns faster. I feel like SE, DOMs, they can just burn their wick brighter and maybe just not get punished for it. I don't know. It feels like they're able to change their energy levels and not get punished for it. Whereas I know, okay, if I'm ramping up my energy here, then I'm gonna like crash my energy down later. And so is that, trade off in energy now, work it for productivity and stuff.
Yeah, so one of the differences you'll see is level of impulsivity. On a general whole, SE dominant types are more impulsive than SE auxiliary types. And another difference is impatience. ESTPs and ESFPs are more impatient than ISTPs and ISFPs. ISTPs and ISFPs can sometimes actually be the one being a little slow sometimes due to NI foreseeing the implications of the future and then being more hesitant with action. Another difference you'll also see is action orientedness. ESTPs and ESFPs always kind of need to stay active in some way, whereas ISTPs and ISFPs do not.
Yeah. So, and again, right, that goes back to my analogy of, right, them burning the wick. It always seems like they're able to, when to burn it brighter, when to not burn it brighter. Whereas I know, like, if I burn it brighter now, I need to, it's going to be a little dimmer later. It's going to be a lot less later.
Mm-hmm. How can someone better develop my TI?
How to develop TI from the lead TI. I think I'd almost want to say, like, it'll probably sound bad, but I almost want to say get away from like logic in a sense, like almost like build things in like you don't want to be so illogical, but like you almost want to like try out like different like fundamental paradigms and stuff and just see how it works and see if your brain can like kind of compute all the errors and stuff. I think of like TIs sometimes as like a video game engine, right? So like say like if you're playing Skyrim or something, right? Like clearly right behind the game and stuff, there's like all these lines of code and stuff going through it. And if you're playing Skyrim and you kill someone and bleh, they just fall through the floor. According to the game engine, that's like a logical thing to happen, right? Like somewhere in the lines of code somewhere, right? The NPC just ragdoll through the floor. And so that's what it feels like sometimes. Sometimes you just kind of like let those things happen. Part of it is like letting go of like what I guess logic should be in a sense and just letting things be. So sometimes if that means, you logic out and, something ragdolls through the floor, that's fine. Sometimes you'll turn on console commands and, add like 10,000 things of luck to your Skyrim character. That's fine too. I'm getting too lost in the Skyrim analogy. Sometimes, you'll add so many objects that like, your whole, Skyrim game just crashes because you add like, a bunch of stuff and too many mods. So that's what it feels like. I feel like part of maybe getting better at TI is sometimes letting go of logic per se and letting things play out. But I don't know, Joyce, does that sound right, or did I totally just tell people to become stupid?
That sounds like getting more into your extroverted sensing. So instead of TI making sense of everything, since you're so in TI, one of the growth tips is to actually just go with the flow.
Okay, but that doesn't help the person develop TI, though, does it?
That doesn't help them develop it. No. That just helps them become more chill if they are a TI dominant type.
Okay, well, moving on.
How much do you relate to saying it is what it is? Are you less stressed out by things out of your control than most people you know?
How much do you relate? Like, yeah, like I think that is part of it. I don't know if, yeah, like I relate, right? Saying things like it is what it is, or you'll notice me saying like for better, for worse, or stuff like that too. So I think sometimes like, yeah, I feel like things come down to like such a fundamental level that, you really do have to say like it is what it is, because it to me TI feels like that fundamental to the thing itself. It's like, say like with music is like sound waves, hitting your ear. So, like say if you were unfortunately like deaf or something, like music in that sense is, not be able to be experienced by you just because, your ears don't work. And the way music works is because, right, sounds and all that vibrate in the air into your ear and stuff. I'm sure there's other ways people, without hearing can interpret music, but yeah, like that is, it is what it is. Like music is what it is. It is sound vibrating through the air. There is no judgment on whether it sounds good or bad. The air molecules just vibrate, and we people have decided, these certain frequencies sound nice, and when you put these frequencies together, they sound really nice. And so, yeah. So I think, it is what it is, speaks to the fact that I think maybe TI gets to such fundamental truths of what things are that, it is what it is, because that is the core, like, pillar that really is, holding everything together.
Yeah, it's also an extroverted sensing phrase. It is what it is accepting of reality. And so it's seeing
Okay.
reality.
Yeah.
And so that is also TI working with SE to some extent. Let's go back to the question, how can someone better develop their TI? What would you recommend them do? Be critical. See everything as a logic puzzle.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be better than what I was doing. Yeah, like just become critical, maybe overtly critical. I want to say you want to be careful. Like, you don't want to be critical and like, because sometimes being critical can come across as like just being an asshole to someone or something. So you don't want to do that too. You don't want to like tear someone down by being critical, right? Because that's a really fine line to cross, right? Which is why, I like rip apart movies in private and stuff. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, because that's a totally different feel. But I want to say, like, like, it's a hard line too, because, right, you want to be critical, and like that TI sense to be better than your TI, but you don't want to just fall into the trap of, oh, being critical just means being, like a uptight, actually asshole to everything. Like, it's a fine nuance too.
Yeah. Developing TI is not accepting everything so readily too. So before you let it into your mind, think about, what do I think of this? Oftentimes, TI dominant types might start their sentences with no. And so it's not like they're not trying to, or like I kind of agree with that, I kind of don't. So kind of seeing the parts where they do agree and the parts where they don't agree. So being hesitant to accept things into your mind, you can better develop TI instead of being naive and gullible, like trying to filter everything through how it makes sense to you.
Yeah. And I want to say probably like filtering is the key word. Like, you really want to try to maybe remove emotions from it. Would that be true to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. TI, it actually feels very removing. It's removing yourself so you can get a more objective view of what's actually happening. So you're going to have a certain level of impersonalness to your analysis to also to a pure TI state. That's why some TI dominant types will have a very stoic expression or a very stone-faced expression, because they're removing the self from the equation as they're analyzing it.
Yeah, and I just want to say, right, you want to be removed, but like, again, you don't want to conflate that with an emotion of being like just apathetic. So it's, again, a nuance there too.
Yeah. How would you nuance that? What's the difference between forcing yourself to be apathetic and just removing the self?
I'm trying to think. The problem is I'm probably going to loop other functions. So Joyce, feel free to like deconstruct this. I'm thinking apathetic would be like, like if like, say you were like, you're on like a nature hike or something, right? And like you notice, you're hiking and you notice like just this one rock there. I think you'd question like why this rock was there, or like, right, maybe like, why is this plant or this piece of trash out of place here? So like, to be apathetic would just to like kind of walk by and be like, oh, there's a piece of trash, and you just kind of keep walking on. But if you're hiking, you see a piece of trash or a rock that's out of place, you question, why is that there, right? Like, what kind of piece of trash is this? Why is this there? Why is this rock here? But I don't know. Are those other functions speaking out, or is that better?
That makes a whole lot of sense. You're saying that when you're analyzing something, you don't add an emotional reaction to it. So you're not saying you, or you're not having an emotional anything towards it. It's more of a, oh, I'm inquiring about this logically, almost in a certain way.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some introverted intuition there too, because you're inquiring into the why it is existing in reality.
Yeah.
In some way too. How important is it being genuine, and how do you interact with people who aren't genuine?
I want to say being genuine's like probably like fairly important. I think. So the second half of the question, how do you interact with people that aren't genuine? Is like, you still have to like, I guess, play along in terms of the FE, right? So it's like, if they aren't being genuine and stuff, but it's not like I can call them out on it, or like I should call them out on it or something, right? Like, if they're not being genuine because of, right, like, something bad happen, right? Like maybe they like had a bad day, right? Maybe they just got some bad news and they're trying really hard to like be happy and stuff for, you know, like an interaction. Sure, right? That's not being genuine, but, you know, I'm not going to call them out on that and all that. Or if they're like, say, you know, being, you know, disingenuine too, but because they have like some weird, insidious, ulterior motive, you know, like I can call them out on that either. So like, unfortunately, right? Like I still need to probably like FE properly with those people for better or for worse. And then how important it is for me, for people to be genuine, I'd say it's probably like fairly important. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably rate it on like a 6 or a 7. It's like I don't want people to be like so like I feel like I still need like the gears and stuff to turn in terms of like peopling and stuff. So like, you know, like like I feel like everyone right needs to get by and stuff. So sometimes if that means you right, come across as a little disingenuine, then sure.
How do you know if you are ISTP approved or an ISTP likes you?
This would be the wrong question to ask myself. I'd want to say I'm trying to think how would I project it to someone who I like and stuff. I think for me the answer would probably be like if I spend like time or energy. Like those are two things that are, you know, that people, you know, that everybody doesn't have enough of, right? Like time and energy, like money, you know, you can earn more of, you know, skills you can get better at, blah, blah, blah. But like if I spend like, you know, my 24 hours of the day, you know, at least part of it with you, or if, you know, I spend part of my energy with you, I think that's probably a part of it. Because those are two things that are very valuable to me. And, you know, I would project by extension everybody else. And so if I would sacrifice bits and pieces of that, you know, for you, I think that would mean your ISTP approved. But what do you think, Joyce? Does that answer sound right? Or
It's true, yeah. I find ISTPs sometimes smile more or they laugh more when they have more facial warmness towards you, even if it's involuntary when they enjoy you. They might not even notice that they're doing it. Maybe they're nervous or something. So that's like how you tell if a ISTP is a little nervous around you, but it might show that they like you because they're nervous, if that makes sense.
yeah.
When you're involved in a project or a task, do you prefer the starting point or the completion?
Involved in a project, do you prefer? I think the stupid SE answer, it depends, right? Like if it's gonna be a long, arduous, you know, project that's gonna be like really miserable and all that, then I probably prefer the completion just because it's gonna be long and arduous, and you know, I would think I'm gonna get to the end of the tunnel, please. But like if it's gonna be like a nice, you know, pleasant project that's not gonna feel like work or something, then yeah, I'm gonna prefer the start so that I can like really relish in the journey that'll get me to the end. So the unfortunate SE answer of it depends.
So this was in regards to the how do you tell if an ISTP likes you when they actually go out of their way to spend time with you or initiate a topic they are interested in.
Yeah.
How do you get along with the ESFJ?
I guess I get along. Again, like I think right, just started watching, so right now I have to backtrack and explain the fact that right, I'll whatever my relationship with that person again supersedes what their MBTI type is. So I, you know, like because of that, I'm not actively aware of what, you know, MBTI types all the people I interact with are. So I wouldn't, know for sure.
Let's say for some technological breakthrough, we each live 6,000 years. In such scenario, what is self-growth? Can psych be developed infinitum or stop after a certain point, or development is an illusion?
We live 6,000 years. So I think with the premise of that question, I'm going to assume, right? So even with the technological growth in like the 6,000 years in the future, if a baby's born in the year 6,001, right, they're like still an infant. They're not going to be able to like say bench press like 1,000 pounds or something or whatnot. So I think from even if someone's born that far in the future, there's like still self growth in a point, right? So like I don't know, let's say they, you know, learn how to be a meat husk for like the first 100 years of that baby, you know, 6,001 years, right? So for like that first 100 years of that baby's life, then, you know, they'll probably achieve peak, you know, what every human thing does that's possible. So now they have another, what would it be like 59,000? So I think at that point, self-growth to me would almost feel like learning how to do things wrong almost. It's like, right? So again, like let's say this baby, did everything and learned how to bench press at like 100 years old, right? So maybe they spend the next 200 years learning how to bench press with like all their fingers minus their pinky, right? So then they spend all the years doing that. And so it takes them 100 years to do that. Okay. And then this person's like, okay, next year, let's do it with 3 fingers. And then they, spend all that time doing that. So I think once we hit a point where we can do everything right, I think self-growth is almost learning how to do things wrong. And then, right, so they would spend all this time doing it wrong. So it would almost look or feel like an infinitum or infinity, just because there's so many. There's one right way, say, for like this baby to, right, well, not baby anymore, to like, right, lift the 1,000 pounds. But in terms of wrongness of how to lift the 1,000 pounds, there's like more infinite wrong ways to lift it. So I'm sure, they'd spend, the rest of infinity learning how to all the wrong ways to, lift this weight.
There is no such thing as wrong as well. It's a concept created by
That's true, yeah,
and by people. And so you're actually unlearning what it is to be wrong by flexing the limits of human capacity by going beyond traditional ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So if you live a longer time, you have a longer time to question life. Yeah. And so you'll often get behaviors noticing the ego is an illusion. The longer you live, the more you realize life isn't about this small game that we're playing. Because when we have the 100-year race, given our lifespan, it gives human beings in general a tunnel vision about how to approach life. It makes it more likely for people to play into the systems set up for them in life. But if you live longer than that, you start to question the meaning of life and look beyond the socially accepted norms of life. So you'd see people rebelling way more often if they live for 6,000 years, because there's a certain level of existentialism that seeps in if you live that long. And so, yeah, what is great about the INF? What is the difference between the INFJ and Istp jumper? We'll love to hear your thoughts on NITI versus TI NI.
So I think in a vacuum, right, the two loops would look very similar. I think the problem is like even in like our loops when we're like jumping between either NITI or TI NI first, I think it's because we loop in a weird way through our second function that you're able to tell a difference even if we're looping. So like, right, for me, when I start thinking about scenarios, right, I reach for like physical, right? So like, right, that few questions earlier when we were thinking about right, doing TI, right, I reach for like the physical thing. I start talking about like a game engine or a hike. I think if Joyce was to NITI loop, she would reach for FE and like do FE things, incorporate FE elements into her loop. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment. I find TI dominant types are more likely to make everything a logic puzzle. So as you hear Vchuefeu talk, as he answered the 6,000-year long question, that's how he approaches everything. TI is his automatic filter, and everything serves his TI. Whereas for the INFJ, everything serves the NI, so it's going to be different. It's not going to be everything filtering through a TI framework like that. Yeah, and even if they're looping, you'll still see FE pretty okay in INFJs. Whereas for ISTPs, the FE is going to be more of a blind spot and is always going to blindside them. So you're going to see the auxiliary and the inferior, even when they're looping, I would posit for most people.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference. How often do you find yourself forcing TI away to make room for FE?
I want to say probably more often than not, I probably am doing it. Though oftentimes it just comes across, I think, as me just, being quiet. Right? It's like in a social situation, I don't want to like TI say the thing, so it just comes across as more quiet instead of like, doing like the FE things and laying on the pleasantries and all that stuff.
Yeah. And go check out the Genzennial. They are magnificent and very, very awesome. What other types have stone face rather than TI DOMs? You'll find the typical stone faced in Enneagram 5 types. So that's the Enneagram 5 facial disposition. You'll have someone who has a very neutral face and they stay very still when they communicate. And that's how you spot an Enneagram 5 through behaviorisms. But not all, but I'm saying that's the trend towards that. And I'm also saying that people in MBTI, if they have the introvert and the thinking dichotomy, they're more likely to be stone-faced too. And so the ISTP, ISTJ, INTP, INTJ are more likely to suffer from stone-faced than other types. Combined with 5 equals even more.
Well, then I was going to ask you, do you think like stone face is separate from poker face? Because stone face is like the default expression, but right, like I'm thinking poker face, someone can turn that on and be like, okay, poker face. I feel like maybe people who are stone faced don't have good poker faces, or I don't know. Do you think there's a relationship between that, Joyce?
Yeah, this is an example of Vchuefeu turning everything into a logic puzzle. And poker face, stone face. I see them as relatively the same thing, probably making people cringe right now. I find stone-faced is an emotion. It's a facial expression that doesn't reveal emotion, which is why it's like stone-faced. It's the opposite of hard-on sleeve face. It is the unreadable face, which I would see as poker face.
But right, I think because with me, like it feels like with poker face people, they know how to turn on or off things. But I feel like with stone face people, it kind of implies that maybe they don't know how to turn on those other emotions, right? Or recognize when those other emotions are getting turned on. Do you think that's true also?
Yeah. How do you experience your shadow functions, TE and SI?
I want to say like in a broad sense, I think SI, I'm just more, I think critical of my like routines and stuff again, like all the things, right, I like should be doing just because, routines and all that stuff, right? Like vocal exercises, warm-ups, practices, running through songs and all that, all that. And then TE is just, I guess, I'm just critical of like all the TE constructs, right? Like I should be able to read sheet music. I should be able to know my scales and my chords and all that stuff. But I don't know. I say all that I'm being critical, but that's probably another function bleeding in there. Or do you think, was that how T and SI would manifest in me?
With SI, you don't really have routines, Vchuefeu. You just like whatever that day is, whatever that day.
Yeah.
You're very vague with what you do in your days. And when it comes to establishing routine, you're kind of resistant towards it. You're like, it depends. I don't know. And with your TE, Vchuefeu is really hands off. Like he's not bossy. He's the opposite of bossy at times.
Right, for better or for worse.
Too chillax. Like he can get irritated, sure, but he's overall super chill. Whereas no matter what TJ you talk to, whether it's ISTJ, ESTJ, ENTJ, INTJ, they'll typically, with a lot of them, report that they've been called bossy in their life by someone, which it's different for TPs. If a TP is being snappy with you, like you really are kind of messing up so bad that the TP is changing their state for that.
Yeah, because we're probably right in work mode. So yeah, if like we're really snappy, it's probably because you're like messing up the work mode. It's like I need to snap you back in ASAP. But yeah, most times if it's not that, we're probably chill.
Got it. Have you ever taught singing? Might you want to teach it in the future?
So right now I've not taught like anyone else how to sing and stuff. So I've not done that. I want to teach in the future. Like if like through some weird life journey or something and it like fell into my lap that I was going to be a singer and my like solo career didn't pan out, then sure, I guess, but like that's not my priority. Like right now I'm not prioritizing on how to be like a singing teacher and stuff. But right, like maybe I don't know, 5-10 years down, if like there's some weird happenstance of circumstance, like teaching falls in my lap and I wake up one day and be like, oh, I guess I'm singing teacher now, not a solo act, and sure. But yeah, so I wouldn't be opposed to it, but it's not where my focus is right now.
Are you okay with being called a villain as long as you think you're in the right?
I think unfortunately, yes. I think of them. I think of the what is it? It's the Cao Cao quote from Three Kingdoms. It's I'd rather betray the world than have the world betray me. And I think that's very, I'm sure Cao Cao in that drama and even in the text is a different type, but that quote, is very fitting. It's like, yes, Cao Cao would rather betray the world and the world see him as a villain than rather have the world come to him and betray him. So I would unfortunately say yes. But I don't know. Do you follow Three Kingdoms stuff, Joyce?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
How does a 10-year-old Istp look like?
I don't know. Don't have any like active like recollections of like 7 or 10 memories that would specifically tie me to being ISTP. Because that thought, right, being an ISTP and MBTI didn't cross my mind when I was 7 or 10. I was probably just more focused on being 7 or 10-year-old. So even with hindsight, it's hard for me to recall like something that happened and go, oh, I was so ISTP there, lol. Like, so that, yeah, I'm sure, again, if someone charted it out, they would figure it out, but I don't have any active recollections.
TE shadow equal don't care what others think or what my status is, resisting what others are thinking as long as they don't have a good explanation. You can see Vchuefeu resisting all the questions that don't make sense to him. If your question doesn't make sense, he will be hard on your question and say, I doubt the premise of your question. I don't know if this is a question worth I don't know how to explain. Yeah.
It's hard, but again, right? Yeah, but it's not in like a hard way. It's like, oh, you asked this question? Stupid. Like, I don't do like that, right? There's still like a FE quality to the question, right? Like, I still want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I still want to take them seriously in their question because, they really did ask. So I'm not going to like go out of my way and be like an asshole to the person who asked the question. They took their time and, maybe money too to like ask the question. So I want to at least give them the respect, take it very seriously. But it's still very TE critical of it.
Yeah. Oftentimes to get Vchuefeu to buy into something, you actually have to have a really good rationale behind it. And so his mind is a little bit like a Rubik's Cube. And so if you want him to believe in what you're saying, you have to teach him how the turns or the twists that you use to get to your conclusion. So it's like, oh, all right, you use premise B to interact with that belief, to interact with that thought. All right, now I know why you believe in that. Does it make sense to me? Otherwise, if you don't explain the rationale behind it, it's almost like you're taking a Rubik's Cube, taking the stickers, you're peeling off the stickers and just putting them on the side. So you're like, all right, I'm too lazy to fix this or to solve this Rubik's Cube. So I'm just going to peel off all the stickers and put all the yellow stickers together on the one side and all the green stickers on that one side. It bothers an ISTP just as if you were going to do that. It's a little bit violating trying to get them to believe in something or to buy into a thought without getting there themselves.
Yeah. And like, with Rubik's Cubes, right, there's like a core algorithm to it. And so with like, I guess TI, that algorithm just gets so long and complicated and drawn out. And, sometimes there's like, moon logic bits in there where like, logic is thrown out the window and all that like most people would, unfortunately resort to, okay, let's just peel the stickers off and put it on the right way.
Pull the cube apart and put it back together. Yeah. And so thank you, Vchuefeu, for coming out and answering the audience's questions. Your logic is a iron that sharpens iron. And so your thoughts refine other people's thoughts. And you make for a more accurate, clean-cut, logical basis for people to believe in things and for you to believe in things. And I'm thankful to know you as someone who has gotten to see your TI refining logical purity searching magic.
Okay. Well,
your analyzing skills are off the charts.
I hope the live stream was, refreshing for people who wanted to see, I guess a snapshot of what that looks like in the raw.
Yeah. You're an excellent example of TI and how it shows up in and how people think. You're wonderful, amazing. These are all of the hand gestures to show how great and amazing you are. And everyone is telling you that they enjoy you just as much as I enjoy you. So.
Oh, well, thank you, chat. Yeah, thank you.
And so thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this live chat. Y'all are very important to me. I don't really have a good connection with my family. And I always tell you guys this, but you are my family. You're all I have. And so I really think you guys mean more to me than you think that you can fathom that I do. So yeah, I'll see you all in the next live Q&A. Take care.